is the biggest obstacle in your life so far, and how did you overcome it?
So my biggest obstacle has been becoming a mother, and not in the difficulty of falling pregnant, but in the sense of actually getting my body ready to have a baby. I had a really bad back injury when I was only about 10 years old, and so I had lots and lots of pain for many, many years. And I was told at one stage by, I can't remember if it was a chiropractor or a physio or somebody, that my coccyx, that bone right at the base of your spine, would probably break in childbirth. But he goes, oh, don't worry. He said, childbirth is way, way more painful than that bone breaking. It's okay. I was a teenager at this stage, so you can imagine I was like, okay,
no
I'm not going there.
Yeah.
And so for many, many years I said, no, I'm not having kids, And my very, very patient husband just, hung in there until, I finally changed my mind and decided to, overcome all of that. And I just went from then thinking, oh, well, I'll just have a C-section, I'll just go down that path. So I had to do a lot of physio and chiro and a lot of treatment in order to strengthen all my muscles and everything, so I could actually even carry a baby. Otherwise I probably would have been bedridden for most of my pregnancy. And also to get off all the pain medication, I took Nurofen and Panadine and stuff daily. And and I didn't want to be doing that while I was pregnant either. So it was a big process to just be able to actually, carry a baby. And so then I had a really, really good physio who I did, thousands and thousands of dollars worth of treatment with, and Pilates and all that sort of stuff, to get my body in the right shape. And that was the whole goal of it. I went to her and said, I need to fix my back so that I can have a baby. And she said to me, you need to get some x-rays so that you can take them to your obstetrician so that she can see what state your spine and everything is in. Because, I'd told her about my coccyx probably breaking. And she said, look, you may have to have a C-section, but do that. So I had x-rays done before I fell pregnant. And so, I took them off to my, obstetrician and said to her, look, I think I'll have to have a C-section. I was told years ago that, my coccyx would probably break, and, what do you think? Here's my x-rays. And she looked at my x-rays and she looked back at me and she goes, no, you'll be fine to have a natural birth. She said, it's, that bone, she said, it bends out, like it flexes out when you give birth. So she said, it's very unlikely that it would break. So then I went, oh, okay. And so then I had to get my mind around, the fact that I could actually give birth to this baby and take back my power. And, as women, I think that we have a really great medical system, but I think that we have given our power away to it. And, it's here in Australia, we have a really high rate of C-sections, and, it's very convenient, like I remember having a friend, saying, oh, I'm too posh to push, I'm just going to have a C-section, and a lot of people have that attitude that, it's convenient, you can book it in, when it's going to happen, you can work it around, your obstetrician and his holidays, and, it's considered a really safe way to have a baby because it's all very controlled. But it's not how we're designed, it's fantastic that we have it for emergencies, for people that can't have a natural birth, it has saved many, many lives. It's a fantastic procedure. But if you can have a natural birth, you should, because it's in that natural birthing process that your baby essentially gets squeezed and it gets all the mucus and everything out of its lungs and everything, so it doesn't have to have it sucked out with a machine. You also, as they go through the birth canal, they get all the bacteria and everything from you. And so it's a really, really, I mean, we're designed to do that. It's how it's meant to be if you can do it that way. And so, yes, it was a big process for me to then get my head around that and, actually, go and seek ways to actually do that. And so I was really fortunate. I had a really good friend who had previously had a baby, and she gave me her book on hypnobirthing. And so hypnobirthing is a process of, it's self hypnotherapy. You're not hypnotized when you give birth, but it's a process of using the power of your own mind to work with your body and allow your body to do what it needs to do. It really is, it's a lot of breath work. And, if you've ever done meditation or any kind of breath work, you'll know the power of your breath. And so it's a really important tool in it. But also in overcoming fear and stress and that sort of thing, because when you are in a state of fear, all those muscles contract that are meant to be releasing and opening. So yeah, it is. There was a lot in it, and it was an amazing process. And so I hypnobirthed in the water for my my first, and my second baby.
I'm finding this mind blowing because I wish I knew about this, because I didn't know that I was in fear in my whole process. And I was talking to someone about it last week, because we're so in the masculine energy all the time of achieving. We need to be in the feminine to give birth. Like, we have to be in the feminine energy. And what happened is I did the same thing. I contracted. And I can remember I didn't want an epidural, didn't want it, but I couldn't relax. And when they gave me the epidural, because I had 38 hours of labor, I dilated 10 centimeters like that.
Like that. Yeah.
But what I'm hearing from you, because I love that project, you've probably been able to use what you've learned from those sessions in your whole life, in mindset. Because if you give birth to a child, you are naturally like that, you can see that you're capable of doing anything.
Yep. And, I often, when I'm experiencing some sort of, challenge or fear or something in my life now, I go back to that and I think, fuck, I gave birth. I can do anything. It really is a very empowering thing. Because, I had absolutely no drugs, no gas, no anything. I didn't even, my first birth was a hospital birth. And I also said to them, I don't want any of that equipment in the room. Don't even have it there. Obviously it's somewhere if you decide that you need it. But, it was just me and my husband for most of the time. And the midwife would come and check on me every now and then. And yeah. So
taking back your power. I jump on that. Like, you talked about that as a woman. People don't realize, and it's not just women, men. We give I saw it with I don't know, my mother-in-law when she was sick, or she passed away from cancer, but she would give the power to everybody else rather than herself. And you're telling everyone here that they're permission, that they can, it's their experience in the hospital. Doesn't matter if you're giving birth or if you're getting a treatment for cancer or you're getting alignment in your back surgery. You have the right to say how you want it to be. Yep,
absolutely. Yes, and I mean, that's something else I'm really passionate about too, is, cancer prevention. Excuse me, I'm just tightening up a leg on my tripod that's making the thing fall down. There we go. That's better. We could go off on a whole nother tangent.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to jump on it because I'm so passionate about things, but I know you shared before, and I really want to go about it, is about immunization, and your children aren't immunized. And I think that's a really amazing topic, because my husband was horrified that I wanted to go down that path. Like, he's like, no, this is the way it is. And I'd love to have your insight because you would have researched it before you even launched into doing that.
Yes.
So please share.
Yes. Yeah. So, oh, look, how did that even come about? Because my mum is a nurse. So, and she's from a midwifery background, and then she's done, you know, regular nursing you know, in her last, you know, part of her career, she worked in a general practice, giving the immunisations. So, you know, I was just, you know, that was just something that you kind of did. And it wasn't until, you know, it wasn't until I was pregnant and I started to really think about how I wanted to, you know, I suppose raise my baby. And I probably, going down that sort of hypnobirthing track, I had, you know, there was probably, I think there might have been, you know, some other people in my classes that maybe had raised the issue. And then I picked up a flyer. I think somebody gave me something at a baby expo that I went to. And I read this little booklet and I was like, oh, wow, what are we doing to our children? And then the research began. And, you know, where do I begin to kind of not, you know, go on for hours and hours?
Tell us some things that you found out that was fascinating that happens to children through immunization. Like what?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think the first alarming thing to me was that, you know, they give vaccinations in multiple doses, you know, like the MMR vaccination, for example. And it just did not make sense in my brain to give a tiny baby 3 different diseases all in one go. It just made absolutely no sense in my head. And so that was kind of the first thing that I started to question. And, you know, and I learnt that, you know, you used to be able to separate them if you wanted to. But now you can't. There's no option to do that. They don't make them in separate batches anymore. And so that was, you know, then I just started to delve deeper into, you know, why can't you do that? Why can't you have that choice as a parent to only do, you know, one thing at a time? And it kept coming back to the fact that it is more convenient. It costs them less money. The pharmaceutical companies make more money when they can give 3 things in one go. And, you know, all of those kind of conflicts of interest, really, I really started to question, you know, the reasoning behind why we are mass medicating our children, you know. And I looked at the history of vaccinations, and I looked at, you know, how many vaccinations I had had as a child and the massive increase that we have now and why that is. And it really is, unfortunately, it really comes back to pharmaceutical companies creating things that they can make money out of. And I know a lot of people will disagree with me, but for me, that was, and then I started to read the research on reactions and things like that. I'd never really come across anybody personally who I knew who had a vaccine damaged child. But when I started to read some of the studies and started to talk to more and more people, I started to find people who had, you know, children with, you know, autism and various different things. And I did a lot of reading on SIDS. And in Japan, they don't actually start the vaccination schedule until children are 2 years old. And in Japan, they have the lowest rate of SIDS in the world.
Your heart. Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
And that to me just says, why are we doing this? You know, and there's so many stories that I have read. And for a lot of parents, they don't make the connection until much, much later that, you know, their child was vaccinated and the next day they were dead. And so for me, it just, I couldn't do it. And you know, then I had the other thing. I had, you know, I had my mum saying, well, what happens if he gets, you know, chicken pox or, you know, meningitis, or, you know, I had all of this. And so then I started to arm myself with, you know, all the things that you can do to support a young immune system. And that was really empowering in learning about homeopathics and natural foods and all those sorts of things that you can do to support an immune system. And because the reality is that, sure, you know, there is a tiny bit of, you know, active ingredient in a vaccine that helps to stimulate an immune response and helps to, you know, create some sort of immunity. Now, and it varies for different vaccinations as to how long that immunity goes for, and if it's, you know, a lot of them are not lifelong. A lot of them there's only certain strains that it will protect and all that sort of information. And there's a lot of ingredients in there that actually really compromise the immune system. And so, you know, that was another thing that just went, well, it just doesn't make sense to compromise a baby's immune system in that way. And so what we ended up choosing to do was do a homeopathic program, which homeopathics work on sort of an energetic kind of a level, and it's really hard to, I don't really understand how it works. But, you know, there is, you know, homeopathics that you can use. And so we went down that track. And, you know, I have got two really, really healthy kids who have never suffered from ear infections, haven't had to have, you know, adenoids and tonsils out, and there's lots of, they don't have asthma, eczema, you know, unfortunately, a lot of those things can be linked back to vaccinations. And so, you know, it's really, I mean, it's huge. Once you start, you know, reading and researching and everything, it kind of goes like this. So, you know, that has been a massive learning curve, and that really, you know, I had kind of considered myself fairly healthy before that, but, you know, I guess it just began this whole new level of, well, what's in our food, and, you know, all that sort of stuff too, you know. So like now we choose to eat organic food because, you know, food is sprayed with pesticides and there are so many chemicals in our food, and then, you know, there's all the chemicals that are in all the products that we put on our skin, and it just, yeah, you know, probably for the first couple of years of my little boy's life, I was probably actually just totally anxious about what I was feeding him and what I was putting on him, and, you know, all that sort of stuff, which was not good, you know, because I'd gone from kind of one extreme to the other. And so now in that process, I have learned to, you know, some things you just have to let go. There's a lot of things you can do. There's a lot of things you can, I don't like the word control, but, you know, there's a lot of, you know, steps that you can take to protect in the best way possible, but without being, totally, you know, having complete anxiety over absolutely everything.
That you talked about that before. When I was teaching, I learned about the brain, the human brain, and how the synapses in children's brains aren't connecting because of the preservatives in food, so that they're having memory lapses. And I think it's really important that we be mindful about what we feed our children, because the foods that are available today weren't available for me when I was a young kid, or my mum, fortunately, in some ways, didn't have money to buy those products because they were more expensive to buy a packaged chips or a drink. But now
it's the opposite.
It's cheap. It's quite, because it's mass produced. But what I love about you is that you have a passion about food, and that I believe is it that you're celiac? Is that right? That you found out you were celiac?
Yeah, I am, and my eldest son is.
So would have been
I
a
haven't
lot
had
of,
my youngest test yet.
well, and so there would have had to been a big uphill in your life of how to change everything around. Like, how do I feed them and myself and have this,
Yep.
healthy, and how did you do it?
Yes. Look, it was a bit of a process. I'd had really problematic gut issues from when I was a child, and I'd suffered from really severe headaches. Now, with my back injury, a lot of my headaches were put down to that. Um, but it was really interesting. I had a lady. I have a beauty therapy background, and I had a rep who who I used to buy, one of my ranges of products from, and she was also a kinesiologist, and she looked at me one day, and I don't know what we were talking about something, and she said to me, she said, "Do you eat wheat and dairy?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah." She goes, "Can I just do some testing on you?" And she did some testing on me. She said, "You'd really be better off without it." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And at this stage, I was, 25 or something. It was just me and my husband. We used to go out for dinner a lot, all that sort of stuff. I loved, pizza and pasta, and I was addicted to carbs and, all that sort of stuff. And so for me, the thought of even trying to do that was, kind of like, oh, but I was like, oh, I can't possibly give up dairy, but I'll try giving up, wheat. And it was this instantaneous, from the moment I did it, my headaches went away. And then all the other, the like this reflux, I had constipation all my life, all these other symptoms, the bloating, the terrible, stomach pains and everything that I used to suffer from. Yeah, it that all pretty much subsided. So that was kind of a big, key kind of like, wow, like light bulb kind of a moment thing for me. And, I played on and off with it all over the years, with trying certain things. I could eat certain things. I could, get away with some things, and then, and then I'd have a flare up again. And, so I kind of wafted in and out of it for quite a few years. And, when I think I just came to a point where I was just like, yeah, I really kind of know that I'm not really meant to eat this. And so I went off of it completely. I found a really good doctor who did some, some testing and all that sort of thing for me, and and confirmed that, I have the celiac gene, and that, you just can't do it. Your body just can't, it just can't process it. It causes an immune response. You have in your intestine, you have what they're called villi, and they're like these little, fingery things. And what the gluten does is it actually damages those. And it's actually not just in celiac disease. This happens to everybody. So yeah, we're, as humans, we're not actually designed to process the amount of grains that we eat, and processed in the way that they are processed. So gluten will do that to anybody. Your villi they repair themselves like daily, but then you get to a point where they can't do that anymore, and that might be when you're 5, it might be when you're 55. But for everybody, there is some point where those villi are permanently damaged and they can't repair themselves. So I'm huge on, trying to teach people that you really should, reduce your gluten and grain intake as much as possible, because we're damaging our guts. And there's no wonder that there's a massive movement in gut health, over the last few years. And that's because we have damaged our guts so badly with how we feed our bodies. Yeah. So, when did I have that done? My eldest was about, I think about 3. And and we put him through the testing and stuff as well, and confirmed the same for him. And so he had basically grown up eating a gluten-free diet because, you know, I'd been advised that, you know, there's a good chance because of my gut that he would probably have similar sorts of things. And when we had tried him with different sorts of things, he had, you know, reactions, not terribly severe. So it wasn't like we went from eating, you know, lots of, you know, wheat and had to completely cut it out for him. It just meant that, you know, like, probably the hardest things was, you know, like when he would go to other people's houses or parties, or when we were out or things like that, it just meant that we had to be a whole lot stricter. And so that presented a lot of challenges, especially for kids. They don't understand. That's really hard for them to understand, that they can't eat something. Why can everybody else eat it? And, you know, and he's not terribly symptomatic. And there is celiacs who are symptomatic, and there is non-symptomatic celiacs. So it means that you don't get the bloating, you don't get, you know, all the different symptoms. And so it was really hard for him to understand, well, Mummy, that doesn't make my tummy hurt, or it doesn't, you know. And so, you know, it's been a process of getting him to understand that, you know, it's causing inflammation on the inside of his body. And so that's just something that I guess it just takes time for kids to be able to get their head around and to be able to understand. And then we're really, really lucky. There's so many alternatives now, you know, like 10, 15 years ago, it was like gluten-free, what the hell? You know, like, but now there's gluten-free everything, you know. It's not necessarily healthy, but, you know, when you go out or when there's a special occasion, it's easy to find, you know, alternatives now that are, you know, as my littlest, I've got an almost 4-year-old, and he's just started kindy, and we were talking about something the other day. I bought them some gluten-free marshmallows as a treat to roast on the fire. We've got an open fireplace, and he goes, "This is sometimes food, isn't it, Mummy?" And so, you know, you can find those sometimes foods, you know, as alternatives, which is, you know, is great. And I mean, you know, for a very, very long time, I made absolutely everything and made sure it was all, you know, healthy, and we did no sugar and all that sort of stuff, you know. And I've had to learn, it caused me a lot of anxiety. And especially, it's okay when you're at home, but when you go out and stuff, it's really hard. And so now I just do the best that I can, and they have the occasional treat, and I have to not beat myself up over that.
It's really good you talk about that, one, about as a mum, that we really have to be mindful of the fact that we want to do these things, but how much pressure are we putting on ourselves? And you've got to let them go. And two, what I think is really important, I come from a background with the eating problems, like disordered. I was anorexic, bulimic, and I can stem it down to the fact that my mum never had those foods there, so I became obsessed with them. Do you know? And it was about the language around the food too. Like, this is a good food, this is a bad food.
Yes.
You know, and you can't. And I still think that I have to catch my mind, because a lot of my problems with thinking is about, I judge what I'm eating. But sometimes I have to eat certain foods nutritionally, like what I found after I had my son. I had to have protein because I was breastfeeding. And what the problem was, I didn't have a lot of protein, but I was eating all the time. I was so hungry. And I had to adjust that, but in my mind, I was judging the food. And it's really important that we have, like, one, I like the fact that you said that you had conversations with your son about what was going on internally about him, because he really now understands that, you know, that those foods aren't right for him, even though he didn't have the same symptoms as you. And two, that it's really important how you just say it's sometimes food rather than, you know, good or bad. Like, it's good that they have that dialogue that's open.
Yeah. And that's come from kindy. They're talking about all that sort of, you know, stuff there. So it's a great kind of, it's a great concept, as opposed to the good and the bad. And, you know, I'm the same as you. I had a terrible relationship with food as a teenager, and, you know, you do really, and I think for me, probably the big thing in me becoming, letting go of, so much control and everything was that I noticed that my eldest was actually getting anxious around food himself. And I was like, this is not good. This is, that I can't continue that. And so, yeah, I had to really just change, the way I talked about food. And I suppose the level of control that I was trying to have around absolutely everything. And, you know, I kind of, when I sort of started into my whole kind of motherhood journey, my little mantra used to be, what would my grandmother have done? Because, she was from that era of, before processed food, before, like it was a totally different, era. And so, that was, that was great. But I think I just became too, I couldn't really live in this world with that kind of attitude, because we are just bombarded with so much, and you just have to have this kind of level of, well, this is what I can do, and I'm doing the best that I can, and in the big scheme of things, my new kind of thing is, will this matter in 5 months or 5 years?
Yes, that's true because
Mm.
I catch myself doing the same thing, getting caught up. Like yesterday, my son, 21-month-old, just doing what he wants, not what I want, and I was getting frustrated. I went out and my husband was home, thankfully. Went out and hung well, got the washing up the line, and then I said the same thing to myself. Does this really matter? Like, does it really matter? And that because I went, no, like I really touched into that, got out of the masculine into the feminine and going, no, no, it's about play. I came back and I was able to play, but also what happened too is because I was in that point, my whole son's physiology, emotional response settled as well because
Mm.
and what I learned the other day, our children have an umbilical cord connected to us to the age of 9. Like, and so everything we feel, they feel. And I did body
Mm.
testing on my hands, yes? Like,
Mm.
am I say to myself, am I Amberlee Jade? It stays. Am I Frank? No. Am I Zion Galia? We are connected. It doesn't want to break.
Mm.
And even when I say my mum's name, am I Jenny Somerville? It's still connected because I am
Yep.
my mum, do you know? And my mum is me. We have this umbilical cord connection, and it doesn't
Yep.
matter if you're man or female. You're still connected to your lineage,
Yes.
And it's
Mm.
really important that we be mindful of the fact of how we are. And I love what you said. Does this matter right now? Does it matter? Will it matter in 5 years? Will it matter
Mm.
tomorrow?
Yeah. Yeah. It's really powerful. And and on that, they really do feed off of our energy. And I've real I've that's something that I've really, really explored quite deeply in like the last 6 months. And it is amazing how, you know, as mothers and as, women, how our energy affects our entire household. And I've really, really noticed the power of that. And, like I, I'm, I'm an empath, so I really feel other people's energy. And sometimes I find it, really challenging to keep myself in the frame of mind that I want to be in, because I feed off other people's energy, and I've had to learn how to do that in order to keep everybody else's energy high as well. But it's really, really powerful, and if you can really tap into the power of that, you can make your whole home so much happier. It's a
I'm going to jump on that. Can you give us one way that you're able to do that? Because I'm realizing right now, as you say this, when I'm off, my husband's off, my son is off. What's one
Yep.
simple thing that I could do, and anybody that's listening, to make sure that their energy is centered and grounded for their family?
There's no real one thing. You have to find what works for you. But I find gratitude is really, really powerful for me. And it also is quite powerful for other people. If you've never read the book The Magic, I highly recommend reading it, and reading the book and doing the practices every single day and not missing a day. I'd read the book lots of times, and then it was only a few months ago I actually ran a gratitude group and did the book every single day, and it was really, really powerful. You know, when you when you are a bit down or low or whatever, if you can think of something that you're truly grateful for, even if it's the fact that you're alive and you're breathing, that your children are alive, it helps to raise that. There's shifting the energy out is another really powerful thing. So just move your body, put on your favorite song and just dance it out, or just shake your body is a really great way to move that stagnant energy that it's not serving you. So that's another really quite easy thing to do. Or, if you exercise and you've got the time to, go for a run or walk or whatever it is that you do, that's also a really great, way to raise your vibration. Cold shower is fantastic. I know you can't just go and jump in a cold shower, but, do that. If you have a shower every morning, finish with 20 seconds of cold. It is really, it's quite it's great for raising your vibration, but it's also great for your circulation. It's great for, stimulating your body. So that's another really great, kind of a tool. What else is great? That's probably kind of the main things I do. Meditation, meditation is, if you can meditate regularly, it helps to clear out that junk and that mind clutter, and helps you to just have more clarity, really. I find that you can think clearer. You can, because as a mum, there's so much that goes on. And, I'm the kind of person that I actually really need some quiet time to myself every day. And so I found that first couple of years of my kids' life really, really challenging, when you're up through the night, they're up, first thing in the morning, they need you constantly. You don't ever get any time to yourself. I found that really, really hard, because I need that time. And so now for me, I get up before everybody gets up. I set my alarm and I get up and I meditate. I do some breath work and journal, whatever it is that I need to be doing. And that really helps to set my day up. I would say that probably having a really nice little morning routine that you can do for yourself, even if it's just having a shower with no interruptions, that you can do for yourself. And it depends on what stage you're at, of motherhood. I remember what it was like, when you're breastfeeding constantly, or you've got to make bottles, or, you go from like breastfeeding to changing nappies to cleaning up vomit to, like, it's just so constant. And then you've got another one that's running around as well. It's very full on. And so, when you're in that phase of your life, you don't, unless you're superwoman, I can't see anybody setting their alarm to try and get up before children. That was really hard. But now that I can do that and find that time, I find that really powerful for me. So it's really, I think, I say to a lot of people, morning routine is amazing. And finding something that works for you is really important, because that first hour of your day really helps to kind of set up the rest of your day. But the thing is with it is that if you're just trying to do stuff to kind of go, okay, well, I've done my morning routine, I've ticked it off my list, and then you go into the rest of your day, that's pointless. It needs to be able to be something that does actually set up the rest of your day. So, even if it is 2 minutes of just visualizing how you want your day to go and being grateful for what you do have right here and now, then that's great if that's all that you can do. You know, and I think it really is important to just keep in context where you are at and what works for you. Don't do something because somebody recommends it if it doesn't resonate with you. You know, like, you know, a lot of people say they can't meditate, but everybody can meditate, and you can learn to. And that is something that I think is something that is super, super powerful in, you know, we have so much, you know, as mothers to run the household, plan the meals, run kids here, there, and ever, try and work if you're working, and, you know, or run a business, whatever it might be, look after all the extracurricular activities. You know, there's so much that goes on in our head all the time, and meditation can really help to just clear that out. So if it's something that you've tried before and you've found really difficult, keep trying until you find something that works for you, because that is one thing that is super, super powerful. Find something that works for you.
That because I used to think, oh, I have to take on their thing because it works for them. But when I tried it, I didn't find it comfortable. I couldn't ease into it. It was difficult. And then I started finding things for myself. And I love that you brought up a morning routine and how important it is with my son. Like, if I don't do them, my get up early and do the things for me, I'm not in the right frame of mind for him. And there's times that he wakes up early because I wake up early and he wakes up early. Well, then I have to say to myself, okay, I'm going to do that those little things for myself once he goes off and doing his own thing. So I want to give people permission to put the television on. I had the first 18 months of my son's life, like 19 months, no television, none. And I was driving myself insane because I couldn't do the little things you just talked about. You said about exercise and meditation, and my son was on me for entertainment. Well, then he fell in love with the Wiggles, thank God. So I put the Wiggles on, and then I can do, so if I haven't been able to do those things while he's been sleeping, I go and do the things that you said. And one of the big things is like meditation, and meditation for me is just letting go, because my mind goes a million miles an hour. And I don't even think it's just mums. I think the world is conditioned for us to constantly think. So we're always in fight or flight response, and our body doesn't need how to calm down. And with one of my clients that I worked with, my coaching clients, I told her she needs to start doing meditation. And so she found a little place to hide, and she did it. And for 10 minutes, she realized that her breathing was up here and she couldn't relax. And then it took her about 20 minutes to go down. And she goes, that's what I'm like all the time. Until I took that 10 minutes to reflect upon where I'm at and go, oh, no, my breath is up here. I need to go back to here. And then she said, and for her, it was just sitting still. She didn't know how to meditate. She just sat there without a phone, without anything around her. She sat there for 10 minutes. And just let her mind go through the things that were going in, and not judging the thoughts. They'd come in and let them go. She said she felt like she was a better human being for doing it. And I love that you've just given me, like, that was something I really wanted to talk about, is the importance of morning routine. It doesn't matter where you are. It's like you're saying, it sets up your intention for the rest of the day. And it's about energy. What you put out in the world is what you get back in return. And I never used to understand that. But when I had this chaotic head with negative thoughts going on, what would happen is that I kept throwing it out there. But then that's the energy people gave back to me. Now, I know that you're short on time. So I'd love for you to tell us, let's see, 3 things that you would like to pass on to us that's made your life easier as a mum.
Ooh, 3 things. Let me think. I think that trusting yourself is probably, you know, one big thing. And, you know, we have so much information available to us. We have so much conflicting information. I think that, you know, being able to trust yourself is really vital in, you know, just knowing that you're doing the right thing at the right time, and it doesn't matter what other people think. That's probably another huge thing. It doesn't matter what other people think. And don't worry about what other people think. Most of the time, other people are not thinking about you. We all spend our lives thinking about ourselves. And when you can, when you can let that go and not be in comparison, and not care about what other people think, that's huge. And I don't know. Going with the flow.
Beautiful.
Like that was never my thing. I've always been such a control freak and have to have, everything lined up and all my, T's crossed and my I's dotted, and motherhood doesn't work like that. Kids haven't read the manual. I don't go by the book. So, being able to, go with the flow and, have a bit of fun, that's probably, another thing. So,
Trust yourself. Don't care about what other people think, and go with the flow, particularly the punchline. Kids aren't born without the manual of how life is meant to be. So I want to say a big thank you. I know we met each other through our educational platform, and I put a big shout out to this, and you were a big forefront wanting to be a part of this project. Now, if people want to get hold of you, how do they go about doing that?
they can find me on Facebook at Benita Lian. That's probably the easiest way to find me. So, yeah.
You're tagged in here. And I know that your little man is the biggest one. Your 4-year-old's a kinder today, your 7-year-old's home, and he's not feeling the best. So you look after him. Big love to you as well. Thank you so much. Honestly, you revealed things I didn't even think were going to come out in this interview. Yeah.
I think we went a bit off track. We probably didn't talk about things we said we were going to talk about, but anyway.
I think it's exactly like you said. Yeah. Go with the flow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go with the flow. Well, I will talk to you very soon. Now, everybody.
Yes, thank you.
Share with us your biggest discovery in this process, and especially about Benita. I think there's so much there. I'm going to comment about it. And let us know what you think. All right, Benita, go and enjoy your day. And goodbye, everybody.
Thank you. Ciao.
Bye.